Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Angie and it's nice to have you guys here today. Today's video is going to be a bit tongue-in-cheek, kind of for humor, a bit of a rant, a bit of serious stuff that is probably good for people to know. It's been a while since I've done a Fibro Chat video, so I thought it was well past time to do another one. I was thinking of fibromyalgia, chronic illness related things that I wanted to talk about. And there have been two experiences that I've had recently that kind of related to the fibro and thought I might just turn this into a video. And so this is my things that irritate me about having fibromyalgia. The things on my list will probably be on the lists of other people with fibro or any kind of chronic illness, invisible illness. I think there is something uniquely special about having a chronic invisible illness. It leaves us open to a wide variety of things. So I'm looking at my phone. I've got my list in my notes. I've got 8 things on the list. Some are related to me and are internal, related to how fibro makes me feel. But some of these things are external stressors and irritations that have nothing to do with me, but are imposed upon me by other people and their assumptions. So I'm just going to jump right into the list. Again, this is mostly to be for fun, but this is also, I think, for others who have fibro or a chronic illness. You might relate to some of this, and for those who don't have any kind of chronic illness, this gives you a bit of an insight into what those of us who do have one have to contend with. So number 1, no matter what I do, I'm never completely without symptoms. Every day something hurts, or there's some amount of fatigue, or there's some amount of brain fog. When I'm really lucky, I can have a day that's mostly free of those, and I can have an hour or two where I do feel pretty good. I was feeling pretty good this morning, but I've just got back from going out to lunch and then going shopping at Whole Foods, and I haven't been feeling too great to begin with the last few days. So I was amazed that I felt as good as I did this morning. And then in the course of going out for lunch and shopping, I now feel really tired and kind of sore and achy. And even on days when I have no physical pain, there's usually, brain fog and I can't concentrate, or I'm really tired. So no matter what, I always have some symptom of my chronic illness. Number 2, just because one method of relief works one time, that doesn't mean it will work every time. I've found some things that help every now and then. Things like an ice pack over the back base of my skull can really help with tension headaches. That might work one time and then it doesn't work another time, but then it'll work the third time. So it's never something that foolproof, this will always fix whatever the problem is. Sometimes getting a good night's sleep can make me feel better. Sometimes it doesn't make a difference at all. So it's really hard to manage fibromyalgia because what works some of the time doesn't work all of the time, and that gets really frustrating. Number 3, people who don't have fibro who think they know what will cure me. And kind of combined with that, number 4 is people who claim to have cured their own fibromyalgia with some kind of magic herb or supplement or specific diet or something like that. And this relates to one of the recent situations that I experienced. I had a comment on the very first fibromyalgia video I did, which was over a year ago. The comment was borderline rude. I'm sure they thought they were just giving me some tough love, or my favorite excuse for rude opinions on YouTube is, it's just my opinion. Not every opinion needs to be shared. The comment, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but they said something like, I remembered this part. It's obvious that you don't pay attention to your diet. And really because I don't think I really talked about diet in that video, The only thing that would have made it obvious to them is that I'm fat. I admit it. I'm a plus-size woman. I'm not an average thin size. So, yeah, I don't look a certain way. I'm sure there are some people who make all kinds of assumptions about my diet based on how I look. The rest of the comment went on to say that I needed to switch to a plant-based whole foods diet. Then the rest of the comment after the whole foods plant-based diet was that until you make these changes, and I loved this part, you will never be successful in health or life. Okay, I can kind of see that the health part. I can see someone who is just so firmly convinced that this specific diet will cure every health problem you have. But I won't be successful in life? Gee, I didn't realize that being on a plant-based diet was, you know, more important than like my PhD. So my PhD is not an indicator of success. Just so we're all clear here. Apparently, I won't be successful in life until I switch to a plant-based diet. Okay, good to know. And like, I'm laughing because to me, the fact that someone could be so convinced that diet alone is, I believe in a more holistic approach. It's diet, it's exercise, it's mental health, it's getting enough sleep at night, it's drinking enough water, which reminds me, I'm never far from this. It's taking your daily vitamins, it's a number of things, and I am working on those things. I'm not perfect. I'm a lot better than I was a year and a half or so ago when I filmed my first fibromyalgia video. I've made a lot of progress, and I'd made a lot of progress from when I was diagnosed to when I filmed that video. So I feel like I'm doing pretty well. But those of us with chronic illnesses, we will always have to deal with someone popping up, whether it's in a YouTube video comment, Instagram, Facebook, whether it's a complete stranger or a family member or friend who is well-intentioned. I've also had a comment on my blog saying that someone had cured their fibromyalgia with some supplement from some doctor, and they included a link which I did not click on. And again, it's like I'm researching supplements, I've decided to go not down the path of medication because I'd researched a lot of the standard fibromyalgia medications and they weren't something that I wanted to deal with. But I'm not an idiot. When I was diagnosed, I did a lot of research, and I continue to do a lot of research on this condition and on what helps, what doesn't help, what works, what doesn't work. Not that I owed that person or anyone an explanation. I deleted that person's comment on my YouTube video, by the way, because anything that, you know, is basically calling me fat and telling me that I need to switch to a better diet when they don't know me and they don't know my medical history, I just delete those kinds of comments because it's not helpful, and I don't feel like it's coming from. There wasn't anything in this comment that felt like it was coming from a place of actual friendship. I'm fine with people saying, hey, I struggle with the same thing. I recently tried this supplement, or I recently tried cutting out this particular ingredient and I noticed a significant difference, just FYI. Those comments I love, and I love getting that kind of information, but someone telling me point blank, you must do this in order to feel better, I'm always going to take that with a grain of salt. I'll research it, and I think what this gets into, and I'm going to hopefully have edited this down to something a little bit better, I think there's a tendency to, so weight discrimination is a thing, and I'm not going to dwell on that, but this person looked at how I looked externally, my size, whatever, and made a judgment without knowing anything about what I am actually doing or eating. I've increased my activity levels. I don't want to talk about diet too much because there's stuff that I'm dealing with that I'm not yet brave enough to put on YouTube. But I think I have mentioned in my vlogs, I have cut out gluten, not completely. I will still eat something with gluten in it every now and then, like if it's a special occasion and there's a birthday cake or something, I'll have a small piece of that. But just on a day-to-day basis, I've pretty much cut gluten out, and I've cut out lactose. I drink lactose-free milk at home, and I will use a Lactaid caplet if I'm eating something out. And then I also have tried like dairy-free alternatives for a lot of things. I have made a lot of changes, and they are working, and I'm constantly working on stuff. So I think those are kind of people who don't have it, or people who claim to have cured their own. People just in general butting in and saying, this is the one random weird thing that you have to do and your fibro will go away. And if it were that simple, we would have eradicated fibromyalgia by now. So I don't think it's quite that simple. Number 5, people who judge me based on my looks and assume things about my fibro. So I've been kind of talking about that, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But again, it's like people look at me and think because of my size or because of my age or because of whatever that they can see externally that, well, that's why she doesn't feel good. She's fat. She doesn't move enough. She doesn't eat right. What you see is not always what you think it is. We all know what they say about people who assume things. But number 6, people who think they know what fibro is like, or any chronic illness is like, because their friend's cousin sister had it. It's one thing when a friend of mine says, you know, who doesn't have fibro says, oh, my mom has it, and I see what she goes through, and I can kind of understand what you're going through. That's totally different. But someone who says to me, oh yeah, my friend's sister's brother's cousin has it, and she was able to run a 5K. Okay, great. For that person, they were able to do that. That doesn't mean that everyone with that same condition will be able to do it. Chronic illnesses like fibro tend to exist on a spectrum. Everyone's case is different. My own case has changed a lot over the years. So there was a point where I was bedbound for a lot of the time. And then I got diagnosed, and I started doing a lot of research and like poured myself into figuring out, okay, what is this? And what are my kind of non-medication pharmaceutical options, and started making some of those changes, and I feel a lot better. So everyone's case is different, and you can't just assume that because something worked for someone else that you know who had it, that will work for your other friend. Like it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Number 7, having to pretend I'm fine, and that's in quotes, 90% of the time when I'm not, because most people don't understand chronic and or invisible illnesses. If I went around outwardly expressing how I feel on the inside all the time, I would have no friends, because no one wants to hear you talk nonstop about how miserable you feel. So I will make jokes about it, and I will bottle stuff up, and I will cover things up and just say I'm fine, because if a friend invites me to their birthday dinner, I'm gonna shut my mouth, I'm gonna grit my teeth, and I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna celebrate my friend's birthday, and I'm gonna let that day be about them. I'm not gonna spend their whole birthday dinner complaining about how tired I feel and how much pain I'm in. Because that's not fair. This is a condition that I deal with 24/7. So the more I complain about it, the worse I feel and the worse the people around me feel. So I think one thing that's common for a lot of us with chronic and invisible illnesses is we will act as if everything's fine, and we will go about our lives and go about our daily business. I will go out to the shop and run errands and act like I'm fine, and then I will come home and I will completely crash. There are other times where I go out because I'm just tired of being in my apartment, and I deserve to feel like I have a life. So this relates to another recent situation that I did talk about briefly in a vlog. I had went to make a return. It was a couple online orders to a local store, and I was wanting to return them in store rather than mail them back, because I hate mailing returns back. It just takes longer to get my money back and blah blah blah. And I was open to seeing if anything like caught my eye as I walked up to the register. Nothing did, so I just went straight up to the register and wanted to make the return. And the woman actually said to me as she was starting to process the return, she's like, you know, you can come in store and try things on. And I'm just like, I think she was trying to make a joke, but it really wasn't funny. And there was also there was a subtle tone, like a very subtle passive-aggressive tone to her comment that just made it hard to laugh it off, because it really did feel, I mean, ultimately I felt like I was somehow inconveniencing her for making her process my return, even though that's part of her job. But it was just like, well, duh, I know I can come into the store and try things on, but there's a whole ton of reasons why people shop online. Like, it was just weird. And then a few minutes later she says, you know, you can mail returns back. And at this point I'm just thinking, would you just shut up and process my return? Like, just do your job and then I will leave and we'll both be happy. You know, she wasn't being explicitly rude, so I felt like I, you know, really did need to be super polite. It was just really awkward and really frustrating that, you know, here I had kind of got myself together, I was out running errands, I was feeling really good, and it turned into this not so nice situation. I went home just in a much worse mood than I had been. It's just annoying when I feel like I have to constantly cover up for my illness because people just aren't going to understand, and it will be more difficult to explain to someone what my illness is and what my symptoms are and why I'm not feeling well. I'm lucky that, you know, my closest friends do understand. When I'm with my mom, if we're out shopping, you know, she's always very aware of how I'm doing, and I don't have to pretend with her because the constantly pretending does get really old. And then the final thing, number 8, is something that I've been really struggling with, especially over this past year. I've just become even more aware of it, and it's being extra, I guess clumsy would be the word, or just extra spacey with my brain, so it's both a physical and a mental thing. So dropping things, knocking things over, not being completely aware of my body and how my body is moving. So anytime I hurt myself, or if I drop something, or if I forget something, and then I get really hard on myself, it just makes me feel like I can't do anything right. I'm always screwing up. I'm always knocking things over. I'm always forgetting something in the other room. And it's far more than it ever used to be. I have trouble typing and texting, either typing on my laptop or on like my iPhone touchscreen. I'm constantly hitting the wrong letter on the touchscreen's keyboard. So I'll end up getting the letter next to the one that I intend. And it's like my thumb and my fingers just don't move the way that I want them to. I used to be able to type on my laptop really fast with minimal mistakes, and now I make tons of mistakes. The hand-eye coordination just isn't what it used to be, and it gets really, really frustrating. This video's now gotten a bit long, so those are my kind of 8 things at the moment that really drive me crazy about having a chronic illness. Again, this is mostly tongue-in-cheek and just kind of for fun, bit of a vent, rant session as well. If you have any kind of chronic illness, or fibro specifically, what are the things that irritate you the most about your condition? I'd love to hear them in the comments. Feel free to vent and rant yourself down there. If you don't have fibro or chronic illness, if you relate to any of these things, I think some of these things are general irritations, just dealing with other people. I know people assuming something about you based on how you look is pretty common whether you've got a chronic illness or not. So feel free to add your irritations in the comments as well. We can all just have a bit of a vent and a rant. I will see you all in the next video. Thank you very much for watching this one. Bye-bye.